Joe, back to you. Thank you.
Regarding that, I'm still working on URI resolution, so can we postpone it for now? Or put it on pause, more specifically? Yeah, and pause it for now. We can swap in something else. No. We can take a look at the board and see what's there. You're not sharing your screen. I mean, we could, and it's kind of a priority, but I kind of feel weird about working on that standard before we implement, let's say, the Rust client. Like, I feel like that's going to give us so much insight to actually write the standard itself instead of trying to, if it makes sense to you guys.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, I think that maybe a better thing to work on would be the like multi WebAssembly language support. So instead of doing the multi-client ecosystem, we can do the multi-WASM language ecosystem. Because we have two of them right now, and we have a third one incoming, and we don't really have a good way of detecting feature sets across them.
Yeah, I agree. We're already at that point.
Yeah, this would be a feature because it basically entails like setting up testing infrastructure that allows us to detect these features. And so it's like we already have the beginnings of this. And I talked with Nestor about setting up like a better system for it, but might be worth having just like a brief discussion about it here to see what everyone's input would be. No, yeah, I don't think that it exists. Yeah.
And I wanted to point out we don't necessarily need to.
I'll create it right now. But yeah, are there any other things that you guys would want to talk about before that?
I was just going to say we don't necessarily need to work on both standards and features at the same in the same amount. I guess I feel like there's been a ton of refactoring recently, and we could work more on features and only standards when they solidify a bit. Because lately we've been doing a lot of workshops on standards, and they seem more like feature workshops than actual standard workshops. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, the only thought I would have is that I do think that it's important that we release clear specifications soon, because as we tell people about what we are, I've noticed that a lot of developers want to see a specification, which makes sense in my opinion. So I think that the more of a spec that we release publicly would be for the better.
No, I 100% agree with that, but they're conflicting requirements, because on the other side, we have the thing that happens always is we try to write a standard and then the features changes immediately. That's less likely now when we are working on the more core standards, but as we work on more extension standards, it's gonna happen a lot more. It already happened with URI resolution. That's why it got postponed so much. So yeah, we do want to have as many things standardized as possible, but that might not be possible without changing them all the time.
Okay, I agree. But I also think that that's a benefit of standard, like doing the standards, is that we realize the pieces that we need to change and need to make better, because they don't actually make sense. So
Yeah, sure.
yeah, I think that'd be useful. If you guys agree, yeah.
Did you say that was a feature or not a standard?
Yeah, it's in between, I guess. But yeah.
Because I think Friday was standard workshop. Or does it even matter?
Uh, yeah, Jordan, I just want to know what do you mean by like multi-wisdom language ecosystem fit? What exactly would be discussing there? I didn't get that.
That's for you, Jordan. I'm not sure if you heard that.
Hey, sorry, my internet's bad, and I'm also trying to clean my dog's throw up. Would someone else be able to answer? I didn't hear.
As far as I understand it, it's about specifying what are the features that wrapper language needs to implement, kind of like wrap invoke, wrap invoke args, largely related to the bindings, and the bindings are kind of features.
Oh, yes, I better understand now. We basically need to come up with a system for maintaining multiple WASM languages, better than what we have right now, so that way we can basically produce like a feature matrix. And so this basically is just coming up with a better way to run our testing infrastructure so that we can better support multiple WASM languages.
I would.
Yeah, and could you also add Nestor there as well? He had a lot of thoughts on this.
I would also like to put it.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, fixed URI for plugins is really critical. Yeah, fixed URI for plugins is critical. Yeah. What do you guys think?
I mean, I'm not sure what we'll discuss there as a feature aside from just publishing. I mean, yeah. Again, I am asking the same question again. There's a issue for that. Yeah, sure, we can.
Yeah, and I think that here it'd be really good to better define the developer experience because we we kind of fleshed out what the requirements are for this the other day, but we don't quite know what the developer experience looks like fully. So I think that if we define that, that would be good.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, and Neeraj. Yeah, not critical.
Wait, did we even do this?
Yeah, I don't recall that actually being moved to final review. I'm not sure.
Yeah, me neither. Did we have any workshop for that or anything?
Uh,
Yeah.
and manifest dependencies was, I think, also marked as done. If I see manifest dependencies on that other tab you had. Yeah, but you had the other tab where you listed them. Yeah. Why is the X there? Is that like done or not? Oh, okay. Never mind. We could do that next. Yeah. Yeah, languages before the capability, I think.
I think that one of the ones that is most fresh in people's minds might be the plugin one around having like the fixed URI for plugins. Um, yeah, would you feel comfortable with leading that today, Niraj?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Give me a minute.
Yeah, and I can kind of if Niraj is getting set up, I created an issue for this the other day that I can go ahead and talk about to introduce the topic. Okay. So here I'll share my screen first if you don't mind, Niraj, and then you can take over.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
okay. So the main problem is that currently plugin URIs are defined in an arbitrary way. And so this can easily break composability as our ecosystem grows and more people develop wrappers. So we should have a tailored developer experience to ensure that plugin URIs are not arbitrary and they are defined in a clear and understandable way. And so first, let's look at what plugin URIs look like today. They look like this. If we go to, let's say, like the demos, and we see some usages of a plugin, if we go to, like, let's say, simple storage, go to the wrapper, inside of the schema, here we're including Ethereum, as you can see, like ENS slash Ethereum. And there's no way to actually know that this is a plugin. And there's also no way to know what the schema of this is. And so you would expect maybe if you go to this ENS domain, you would find a wrapper, but there's nothing there. And instead, what we do is inside of the client, I guess that a way to think of this is that today we kind of do it similar to like polyfills or something like that. Like we basically stub it in. And so inside the client, we just basically set the Ethereum plugin. So inside of this plugins array, we say that this URI is equal to the plugin. And again, like there's no way to know what this interface is without going to the plugin source code. So here's some of the ways that we're thinking of solving this. Basically, as a plugin developer, you should be able to implement an interface. So there's like this correlation of a plugin with an interface. And so being able to use, let's say, an external interface that's published somewhere, and then implement that in your plugin, or defining a local interface for your plugin, and then being able to, let's say, publish that as well. And then like with this correlation of a plugin with a clearly defined interface, app developers should not be responsible for defining the URI of a plugin, because the plugin should already know what URI it implements, like what interface URI it implements. So app developers shouldn't have to do this anymore necessarily. And then as a wrapper developer, I want to depend on plugins in a transparent way. So wrapper developers are able to import and invoke plugins. Yeah, so that's kind of all I have for the introduction. Is there anything that you would add, or where would you want to take this, Raj?
Yeah. Let me share my screen. So yeah, here I have created this HackMD for future discussion, and I have also tested the Discord discussions that we had on this channel. So yeah, I agree with all the points that Jordan has brought, and yeah, yeah, one of the solutions that we came up with was like also deploy the interface, or yeah, also deploy the wrap info of a plugin to the IP address and ENS, just like you do with wrapper and normal interface. And yeah, uh, user, yeah, user. So once we have that interface, once we have interface of plugin deployed on the ENS, user will be able to discover that plugin and also will be able to uh, know that this particular interface belongs to this particular plugin, or the vice versa, like this plugin is for this interface. So there won't be any issue with like that we currently have. For example, Ethereum. Yeah, the currently I can name the Ethereum plugin Ethereum Polywrap it, or I can just name it Ethereum.it. This will create a whole issue as we mo- yeah as we move on, and people will start creating third-party plugins. So yeah, that's like crux of what we were discussing in the Discord, and yeah, what I think most of it also covered by Jordan's story.
I think what you just described was one of the points. So we could go by point and work on them, unless there's some other points we need to add or remove. Like, does everyone see the points at least on a high level? Do you guys think we should add or remove anything? Okay, can you go to the GitHub issue, please?
Is the number?
By the way,
Jordan?
Niraj, I don't have access to your HackMD. I don't know if anyone else has this issue.
Mm, oh, you need to be part of Polyrap HackMD.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Jordan can invite you. Yes.
Hey, yeah, let me see if I can make the document public.
So from my understanding here about all of these points, I think they're pretty much most of them are currently possible. They're just not a part of our development process.
Hey, Yuri G, try now.
Give me just a second. Works. Thank you.
Yeah, I added this other point, as you can see, standard plugin interface for multi-language client ecosystem. I think we also need to define that, and also like fixed URI for all the plugins. Mm, yeah.
So what do you mean by fixed URI for all of the plugins?
Yeah, that's mm,
Ah, okay. Yeah, I honestly, before you mentioned this issue, I thought this was done already. The only reason it wasn't is because we were migrating to Origin, but turns out it wasn't. So yeah, can you add, I don't know, copy paste the points from the GitHub here so we can work on them?
mhm. And yeah, I would say this
Um,
standard plugin interface. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna ask if so right now, like we write like pretty much most, like almost all the plugins, and so it's easy for us to write an interface. But if a third party, like say some developer wants to write a plugin, does this mean that they have to write an interface, or maybe can we would we like want to like automatically generate an interface based on a plugin, like have something like that, or like
Yeah, yeah. So
because does a plugin
my interface, I yeah. So for the first point is separate, but for the second point, like every plugin should have interface. By that I mean just so whenever we're going to build the plugin, you will also have the rep.info, and we need to deploy this rep.info to IPFS, which will be uh, interface, right? So that's like interface without an implementation. So that's why I call it interface. And I don't think we need to do anything special for this. Like we already support interface, right? So we just need to deploy this build rep info to the IPFS CNS. Yeah, does it make sense?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I didn't fully understand. So, okay, so say I want to write a whole new plugin. Do I also have to write an like a separate project, or
No.
okay?
Yeah. Let me show you. Okay, wait. Yeah, in here, right, we have lots of plugins. So in plugins, if I check the Ethereum and I check the build, you can see this plugin with JSON. Okay, I don't know why this doesn't have rep.info. We do have rep.info in the plugin, right? Or we should.
We
Yeah,
should, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. So it's
Okay.
actually done in the most recent PR from from Caesar and also yourself, Niraj. The standard for plugins is that there should be a wrap.info file, so that you can just read that directly. But then there should also be some like in-memory representation of it. So in TypeScript, we have like the manifest file, which gets turned into wrap.info.ts. So it's basically allowing you to read the ABI from disk or read the ABI from memory, whether you're in a CLI use case or in a client use case. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So yeah, let's say like we will have rep.info here, and we'll have rep.info.ts, which won't be using for this purpose. And yeah, once we have this rep.info, we will deploy this rep.info. Yeah, yeah, just rep.info, right? Because in case of interface, we will just be deploying rep.info. I know we were also deploying schema.graphql, but I don't see any need once we have yeah, once we stop using schema altogether and start using ABI from rep.info. So I think for interface, we just need to deploy rep.info. Am I right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we would just be deploying this rep.info to the IPFS and yeah, also setting the IPFS to ENS as we do with e- any normal wrapper or interface. So yeah, does this make sense now?
Yeah, and one question I have is, do we want to force plugin developers to make a separate interface project? Or do we want to allow plugin developers to just deploy, their interface from the plugin project?
Yeah, so that's my second point. So here, if you check this first part, standard plugin interface for multi-language client ecosystem, standard interface for plugin and translation visitors. So for example, we have uh, Ethereum plugin, right? And we will have Ethereum plugin in each language, right? So if we have Python, then we have Python client. And sorry, here, sorry, here it should be TypeScript, uh, Python, etc. So yeah, we should have plugin plugin Ethereum in every language, like TypeScript, etc. that we support. So yeah, how can we make sure that plugin that is created in the Python, like Python Ethereum plugin and TypeScript Ethereum plugin shares the same interface. Like they are, yeah, they're both composable. So if, for example, Python has different methods and TypeScript has different methods. For example, get block number in the TypeScript and something like just block number in the Python. Although both of them are doing the same job, this will make the entire system uncomposable and will lead to future issues. So, what I am suggesting is whenever you want to create a plugin, you need to like, so this is a optional. So if you want to if you want to support multi-client ecosystem, then you need to do this. Like if you want to have your plugin across multiple languages, then you must do this step where you need to create an common interface for your plugin, interface for plugin, and then implement or inherit this interface in your plugin. So you need to inherit this interface in your plugin scheme for any every plugin scheme. So this will be true for TS, Python, any plugin that you implement. So you will be implementing this particular interface from the top, and users will be referencing this interface. They won't even know. By user I mean rep developer. So rep developer will always point to the main interface or the common interface, main or common interface. And yeah, it will be the job of uh, implementers or client to like map this main interface URI with the registered uh, yeah with the implementation of the current plugin. So for example, it is Ethereum TypeScript plugin, then it will map to Ethereum core Ethereum interface to the Ethereum TypeScript plugin URI. So this can be Ethereum dot Polywrap dot e interface one, like common interface one is this, while TypeScript interface is this Ethereum dot ts dot polywrap dot it or something like that. And yeah, client will map common to the TypeScript one. Does this make sense?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
thinking about it a little
it-
different. Do you mind if I share my screen a little bit? Just
yeah,
really
for
quick to show something. But I guess before I do that, does anyone have thoughts on this? Sorry, Naresh.
yeah. Also, you can just write here if you want to.
So it went a bit slowly, so I'm not sure I followed everything. But why do we have a per language interface? Is it just because the implementation can happen to be different?
Yeah. So this is we have language interface because of the second point. every plugin deployed on the
Sorry?
IPFS should have the, yeah, because of the second point. And implementation can have some special method, like one implementation, for example, TypeScript implementation have some extra method like foobar, while Python doesn't. So yeah, you need different interface for that.
I agree with the last part, but with the second point, have interface for every plugin deployed, I don't think that's needed by default. Something like a resolver extension that just inherits from the core interface for resolver doesn't need its own interface published. There's no use for that. I mean, there can be a use for get implementations and kind of stuff like that, but I'm not sure I would add that as a default.
Yeah, this would be important if people would be, or like normal rep developer want to use this, right? Because if this isn't fixed, then there won't be a whole lot of issues. But if we are just using something internally, or creator of this plugin knows that or for example, Gelato is using Gelato has created their own plugin and they are just going to use it on their own runtime. So they don't necessarily need to like deploy the interface for that. So yeah, in that case, it's all right. But yeah, if you really want to like make this composable, then you need to like deploy the interface, right? So that others know that this plugin is on this URL. Or other app developer also know that if you want to point to this plugin, then you must use this particular URL.
I mean, I think it makes sense only because of get implementations and specific implementations. Again, I don't think I would. Maybe we should favor this heavily, but I don't think it should be in any way required. And I'm not sure that it does help with composability that much. I don't think I follow there. But again, I think this will heavily depend on the implementation and those details, so we don't need to stand on this point too much. As far as I'm concerned, we can move on.
Yeah, does anyone else have thoughts? Yeah, Chris.
I was gonna say if we instead of having individual interfaces for each like language specific implementation, if we instead like enforce implementation of a common interface, then that makes it a lot easier for wrapper developers to develop with like without worrying about each language like language specific thing, like differences. So I don't know, like it seems like you could just have each plugin know about the URI of the interface that it implements, and I think that just makes a lot of stuff easier. Like, and I know that it's valuable sometimes to have like additional methods or something, but I don't know.
Yeah, my only issue with having multiple lines or like multiple plugin with across, yeah, whatever, yeah. Multiple
Raj,
languages
your mic is getting worse and worse.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Is it better?
Much better.
I think it might be, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So my only problem was like for using the one common interface for all the plugin implementation is it can have other methods. So if it has other methods, then there will be issue in like code generating and doing stuff like that. And yeah, yeah. So I that's like the only issue with that, and I think that's a major issue because if we can't code gen properly, then what's the point? Like you won't even be able to use that extra methods inside your wrapper.
I agree 100% there. Like there could be differences, and then you would need to publish your own interface for your plugin. But again, I don't think it's necessary by default, and I think we're thinking too much about the process. I guess this has almost nothing to do with the specific feature. Like with anything we need to do implementation-wise, you could do all of this today. Everything's supported as far as the client, toolchain, and everything is concerned.
My only question is, wouldn't a I don't know, language specific interface kind of break the whole idea of portability? Or did I miss something? I mean, yeah, that's my question essentially.
Yeah, by language specific interface, it's just like so we do have a common interface which all the language inherits from, and we will also have language specific interface or implementation specific interface. So you can have like Ethereum plugin or Ethereum core Ethereum interface, and even in TypeScript you can have one implementation based on Web3 and another implementation for same plugin based on Ethers JS. So you have two different implementation inside the TypeScript, and both will implement the same Ethereum interface. So by the second point, it is like every plugin implementation will have an interface. Now Web3 implementation will have some specific methods that is common to Web3.js or something like that, while Ether.js will have its own specific method or special methods that is common to that. But both of them will implement from Ethereum interface. And the reason why those special methods aren't inside the Ethereum interface because it can be many things, right? Maybe Web3 doesn't support the special method that Ether.js has, or vice versa, or something like that. Like there is no standard between this. So.
Yeah, and what we're essentially doing now is, I don't know what, forcing both Web3 and Ethers to open up their own interfaces, which basically implement the Ethereum. Like, yeah, like, so, yeah. And why are we like adamant on that? That's kind of my question.
On which?
Why are we adamant on the fact that the plugin, which is essentially an implementation, also needs to publish its own interface?
Yeah, that's for the reason that if where this Web3 has other methods that isn't inside the Ethereum interface, then I believe it should there should be a way for people to know that there are some special method inside this particular implementation. And if we have an interface for that also deployed, then people will know like this is the Ethereum interface. It has two different implementation like Web3 and Ethers.js for the TypeScript, and Web3 implementation has these different methods. And here is like this plugin. How can I use it? Whatever. So yeah.
Okay.
So I think the first point on line 3 is poorly worded. That's why there's a lot of confusion. It has nothing to do with the multi-language ecosystem. It's just that plugins, even though they are supposed to be doing a similar role, like having an Ethereum plugin, they can have different implementations because you have different versions of that plugin. Just like in JavaScript, you have the Web3 working for Ethereum, and they have some common methods, they have some different methods. So this is literally just standard object-oriented programming. You have an interface and you have multiple implementations. So you can publish your common interface if you want to standardize that, or if you want to do things like have multiple implementations for a single interface. But if you want to publish your own plugin interface, you can do that as well, especially if it differs from the common interface. If it doesn't, I think there's a lot less need to do that.
Hey, I have a quick code walkthrough demo that I think addresses Niraj's concerns. So since we only have 10 minutes left, is it okay if I share really quick?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so this is what I think plugin projects will look like in the future. I think that plugin projects will have an interface folder, which is just like a standard, interface. It gets published as an interface, nothing special there. And then I think that after that we will basically create language specific folders. And so in these language specific folders, we will basically use the interface as you normally would. So this interface gets published to this domain here. And then if we wanted to build a Python plugin that uses that interface, we would just do so like this. We would just import the interface like we normally do. And then if we wanted to, let's say, add a custom function, we can do that like so. For Rust, for example, there are no custom functions. It's just the interface. And then lastly, for TypeScript, there are, again, like a TypeScript specific custom function for this plugin. And so now, like, this is the interface definition process and the plugin definition process. And when we now write an application, we will be able to actually have some cool things happen here. So when we add the plugin, so here's our client, right? When we add the client, we can actually invoke the same URI as the interface. So let me see if I have, sorry, let me just get the URI here. So if we invoke this interface, and we call the common function, like method is the common function, common method. It should work as expected, right? It should call this plugin's implementation of that function, right? And so that's for calling common methods is we just basically invoke the interface, right? And so now if we wanted to then call the custom TypeScript function, so here in TypeScript, if we want to actually call this function, we need to actually assign a URI for this plugin so that we can query it directly. So let me just write this out really quick. Okay. So we can't use this URI anymore. And so what do we actually put here? Well, I think that we will probably need to go ahead and add a basically like a URI here. And maybe this is where we can get creative, is that since we know that this function is going to be plugin specific, so it's not a part of any interface, we can actually give this, instead of a URI, we can maybe give it a name. So its name is example. And so now the URI we use is, let's say, something like plugin/example. And so this basically ends up invoking the custom function in the plugin, and it's very clear. And so yeah, this is the app developer experience. and then we can also think about maybe like what does it look like to use a plugin in your wrapper? Basically we would only import the interface. So you wouldn't be able to call this function in your wrapper, obviously. You would only be able to call this, I guess. So
You can if you import that specific interface for that implementation.
Yeah. So that's the main reason of like having interface for that plugin also deployed, right? So that you can basically call the yeah call the specific method inside wrapper also. So yeah,
okay.
Yeah, if it differs.
Okay. So okay. So basically, from what I gathered with this, it almost seems like the way that we currently have things set up works well with what we want. But we just need to make better distinction of when you add a plugin to a client. I don't think that we should ever allow you to custom like in instead of doing URI, ENS, whatever. I think that we should not we shouldn't allow this anymore, and we should instead force people to register it at like a plugin authority effectively. So this maps to like plugin, example. So that way it's very clear. And then the other thing we need to change in the client is that make it possible to invoke the interface directly. But yeah.
So this it's hard to talk about this because it heavily involves what I'm currently working on with URI resolution, and I could actually show you guys that after this call if you have time. I don't think we have anything scheduled, but yeah, I wouldn't have a plugin authority, and I think in the future we won't even have plugins as part of the config. Like the client won't know a plugin exists. I don't think there is a reason for that. There is a need for that.
Hey, I'm sorry, I dropped for a second there. But yeah.
that's interesting. And yeah,
I just think
would
there
like
will be
to
a need
find out.
to even have plugin as a concept.
Yeah, I think if that is going to be the case, then we need to discuss that first before coming up with this solution.
Yeah, do you guys have time in like 2
Sure.
minutes after this call? Jordan, Raj,
Okay,
and
so
anyone
our
else?
agenda for
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, sure. But just quickly to summarize, like I feel like we came up with a good list of requirements. We know that we still want to be able to support custom plugin functions. We want to support interfaces for plugins. Yeah. Any other key takeaways that this had produced?
We should publish our plugin interfaces as soon as possible. And a quick sharing of my screen. Yuri G.
And just quickly, I think that that's another takeaway for me is that we kind of already have a system for making our plugins more concrete. So just like you said, Yuri, by publishing our interfaces, we're going to already be like halfway there to solving our issue.
Yeah, that's the main issue we currently have. This is a suggestion by Yuri G. So if we had text record resolvers, and this is just for our plugins that we develop, we could have like a interfaces.polywrap.e domain and then publish text records for those interfaces instead of going like something like this or something like this. But just a suggestion. Maybe Yuri G could elaborate further.
The idea was just to make it as painfully obvious as possible that you're dealing with interfaces, and probably that's all I had. Like, it just looked neat. Really no better, really no, bigger reason for that.
There could be some value in signaling ahead of time that something
Yeah.
is not a wrapper based on its URL.
The one thing that could be good then is that the plugins could live under literally the same URL, but instead of interface or interfaces, it would be plugin or plugins, or plugins-js, plugins-rs, or even after the polywrap.eth, it would be /js/ipfs or something like that, like so that we can, immediately and easily know what we're pulling. But yeah, just a thought.
Yeah, only one issue with this would be like decentralization, right? So if, for example, Uniswap want to create their own plugin, then they need to come to Polywrap and like Polywrap need to change these content heads and things like that.
No, that's the same as we currently have, right? We currently have ethereum.polywrap.eth as our Ethereum interface plugin.
Yeah, I think that also some of those issues can be solved with like a better CI/CD process. So yeah, and I would also say that we should have them versioned as well. So we should definitely add a version.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you,
Sounds
Joe.
good. Thank you.